princesses, all with long flowing hair and short, fiery tempers. Their father, the king, was a grumpy old man who didn't believe in having fun. In fact, he believed that princesses should be seen and not heard. The princesses strongly disagreed. The thing they argued about most was dancing. Their father hated it, but the princesses loved it. So whenever he wasn't looking, they danced anyway. The girls slept in a tall tower with their beds side by side. Every night, the king locked the tower door so that they couldn't sneak out. One morning, when the door was unlocked, the princesses were still asleep. As the maid went to wake them, she noticed their shoes were lying in a soggy pile on the floor. The shoes were worn out. When the king heard about the shoes, he was furious. Those girls had been out dancing, he spluttered. Princesses should not be out dancing all night. He yelled at them. You need your beauty sleep. You should all be ashamed of yourself. The girls weren't ashamed in the least. What's more, they wouldn't tell him how they had escaped or where they had been. The next morning, it was clear that the princesses had been out again. The same thing happened 7 nights in a row. The king didn't know what to do. Then he had a brilliant idea. He decided that the first man to discover where his daughters went each night could marry one of them. Posters went up across the land. One day, a magician named Ralph and his pet dog Rascal were passing the castle. Ralph noticed one of the king's posters and decided to find out more. When he saw Ralph, the king looked doubtful, but he was desperate to know what the girls were up to, so he agreed to let Ralph try. Night came and Ralph was put in the same room where the others had stayed. Hello, I'm Amy, said the youngest. He's nice. She whispered to her sisters, I don't want him to die because of us. Maybe we shouldn't go out tonight. Her sisters ignored her. A few minutes later, Annabelle, the older sister, bought Ralph a cup of cocoa, but Ralph was a wise magician. He knew what she was up to. Ralph yawned. I think I'll put my feet up for a few minutes, he told Annabelle. Then, with an even bigger yawn, he pretended to fall asleep. Annabelle crept back to her sisters. He's asleep, she whispered. Let's get ready. They put on their sparkliest ball dresses. The princesses shimmered like a rainbow. With the last button buttoned and the last bow tied, the girls stood in front of their beds. Annabelle pulled back a dusty old rug in the corner of the room to reveal a secret trapdoor. The hinges creaked as she pulled it open. When the princesses were out of sight, Ralph quickly entered their room. He clicked his fingers and a cloak appeared. With a second click, Ralph vanished. Carefully, he tiptoed down the steps into the tunnel. It didn't take long for him to catch up with the princesses. Ralph tried to walk quietly, but it wasn't easy. At one point, he stepped on Amy's dress. She jumped and turned around, but there was no one there. A few moments later, Ralph stepped on a twig. Now Amy was convinced that someone was following them, but her sisters didn't believe her. At the end of the tunnel, they came to an astonishing row of trees. Some of the trees glistened with silver, some with gold, and some with sparkling diamonds. Ralph had never seen trees like them. While the princesses carried on, he gently broke a twig off each tree. When they reached a castle, a band began to play. The princesses danced until their feet were sore and the soles of their shoes were worn out. As the sun rose, they went home. Our nights of dancing are still safe, unlike poor Ralph's head, said Annabelle, yawning. The king was having breakfast when Ralph strolled in. Good morning, Your Majesty, said Ralph brightly. I suppose you've come to tell me you failed too, sighed the king. But I didn't, sire, Ralph replied, waving the twigs. He told the king what he'd seen. This all sounds very unlikely, grumbled the king when Ralph had finished. Are you sure you're not just making it up to save your head? He decided to call for Annabelle. When she saw the 3 twigs in his hand, she looked horrified. One look at her face told the king all he needed to know. Dancing is banned, he declared. The princesses sobbed and wailed when they heard that their secret had been discovered. What will we do? They cried. Life is so dull without dancing. True to his word, the king let Ralph marry one of his daughters. I like Amy, Ralph said. If she'll have me, she's the sweetest of them all. Amy and Ralph's wedding was a joyful occasion. Even the king couldn't stop smiling.